Hello everybody. Today we're going to make a little bit of a pot roast slash beef stew. So I got a couple small pieces of beef chuck roast and a couple thick slices of bacon that we're going to cut up and use for our meat today. We don't need a ton, just enough that we can flavor the rest of the stew and have just a little bit of meat in there for that extra punch in the end. We'll start off by getting a pan with a little neutral oil in it. We'll have it ripping hot, right to the point where the oil is smoking. We salt the beef and then we cook it on each side, each of the four main sides, for about 45 seconds to a minute each time, so we get a little bit of a brown crust. We want the crust. We want the crust for the flavor, but we also kind of want it to render off just a little bit of the fat that we'll use to cook some of the other stuff. Once it's done, we'll leave the drippings and we'll move the meat over into our pressure cooker on a little rack. Then I'll turn the heat down to medium-low, chop up the bacon into little pieces, and set it in the pan to simmer for a little while. The next thing to do is get it set up so we can actually start cooking the beef in the pressure cooker. So I get a couple of teaspoons of this bouillon paste. You could use beef stock, chicken stock, or just regular water really, but we'll mix up this and then we'll pour it in. Then I'll get out my seasonings, a little rosemary and thyme, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and I'll pour that in over the beef. And then from there, I'm going to grab a little Worcestershire sauce, so a couple tablespoons of that, and then like a quarter to half a cup of red wine. Pour that in the bottom underneath the rack, as well as the beef broth itself, which the beef broth should not submerge the beef. It should just kind of barely kiss it under the bottom, maybe just a tiny bit up the. After I get all the liquid and stuff in, I get ready to go ahead and turn the pressure cooker on high and set it for usually about 45 minutes of pressure cooking. About this time is the time I need to go back and check on the bacon. It should be about done. I'll use a slotted spoon, take it out, put it in a little bowl, set it to the side for use later. With the roast in the pressure cooker, now it's time to cut up some vegetables. I have carrots, onions, and Yukon Gold potatoes. Little red waxy potatoes would probably be better sometimes, but I just buy the Yukon Golds because I can use them for everything. So to cut carrots, I line them up so that all the tops are next to each other. I just cut the tops off. Since this is going in pot roast, I don't bother peeling the outside of the carrots. I don't think that matters too much for this sort of application. Do for other stuff, just not for this. But once I've got these carrots, in order to cut them, I want to cut them so that they have as much surface area for as little volume as possible. So to do that, I think about turning my knife 45 degrees and cutting this long diagonal, and then I turn it about 90 degrees and cut it again, and then turn it 90 degrees and cut it again. And so I just kind of rotate it a little as I cut it at this angle as I go through, and you can see all these pieces have very odd dimensions. So let's just do the rest. Alright, time for onions. So if I'm just doing a big chop to put this in the stew, all I do is I look at either end, go back just a little bit, cut off the tip. Same thing for the other side. Then cut it in half. Put this stuff in my garbage bowl. And look and grab usually one layer back, but it depends on how it is. Just kind of look.
stubborn. These don't have to be small, so I go back like this, holding it together. Just rough. Chop. Alright, now for potatoes, it's a lot easier if you get fresh potatoes, but I've had these sitting around for a while, so I figured it'd be a good example. They're already starting to bud off and make little eyes. So in order to kind of do these, take a little paring knife and I just cut off the bigger spots. It doesn't even, like these little bitty pieces, like I don't have to really get this stuff. It's going to cook in pot roast for a while, so with the pressure cooker. So those reasonable potatoes, I just kind of cut these pieces off and grab the big knife. Just cut them up into big chunky pieces. So we'll repeat that over and over.
Alright, the next thing to do is kind of set up our seasonings and do our final preps while the meat is cooking. I use a lot of what I've done before, plus I also add a bunch of Italian seasoning and parsley, and then I'll get that all mixed together, and then I'll make a little cornstarch slurry and get my vegetables and all that stuff kind of set aside, just waiting for the meat to get done. Once the meat is done, I'm going to take it and the rack out and let it rest for a little bit. And then I'm going to dump in all of the vegetables and seasonings and mix them well together. I'll usually go ahead and add a little bit more red wine and Worcestershire sauce before putting it back on high pressure cook and let it pressure cook for 15 to 20 minutes or so. Once that's done and I'm letting the pressure come off, I'll go ahead and chop up all the little beef into pieces that I'll go ahead and mix in with the rest of the stew, and then just get ready to go ahead and serve it up. And we get one delicious, comforting bowl of homemade stew, and it's simple, easy, and definitely worthwhile. Thanks for watching.